Good evening. My name is Richard Feller, and welcome again to My Father's Business at Callington Castle Theatre. I'm reading the precursor books that were written before Callington Castle. And tonight I am reading from chapter 2 in My Father's Business. Let me show you the book so you can further join me. This is My Father's Business. Building Relationships, that's the full title. And I'm going to be reading from chapter 2, Jesus, My Son. And Jesus, My Son is about shuffling all of the Gospels together into one cohesive unit. So at the same time, you can get all the angles of what is going on. And I have very slight commentary that's in there as well for easier understanding only. And I try to keep as close to the Gospels as possible. Jesus is leading his disciples. And if you hear me whistling a little bit in my reading tonight, it's because I lost a tooth, and which I am in the process of getting fixed. Okay, and I'm going to pick it up as soon as I find my mark. And thank you again for joining me. And here we go. I crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake. Oh, wait a minute. That's the right place? Yes, it is. Okay, just double checking. I crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake. A large crowd gathered around me. While I was by the lake, one of the synagogue rulers named Jairus came out to meet me. Upon seeing me, he fell at my feet and pleaded with me earnestly, "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her, that she will be healed and may live." Seeing his faith, I went with him. A large crowd followed and pressed around me. A woman was there who was subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors, and she spent all she had, yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about me, she approached, touching me from behind. She held my cloak because she thought, if I could just touch his clothes, I would be healed. Immediately, her bleeding stopped, and she felt it within her body, a release that she was freed from her suffering. At once, I realized that power had gone out from me. I turned around and looked into the sea of faces. The crowd seemed to be hiding the one who needed to know me. And then I asked, "Who touched my clothing?" You see the crowd of people pressing against you, Master, and yet you asked, "Who touched me?" My disciples inquired this of me. I watched in my spot as I reached and searched for the one who had touched me. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at my feet, trembling with fear. Now she was ready to know me by my love. She told me what had happened to her, the whole truth, and I listened to her every word. Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering, the judgment of the law." And I noticed as she started on her way, my peace in her heart. While I was still speaking, some men came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue ruler, bringing the news that his daughter had died. "Why bother the teacher anymore?" Ignoring what they said, I told the synagogue ruler, "Don't be afraid. Just believe, and your daughter will be made well." I did not let anyone follow me except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When we came to the home of the synagogue ruler, I went in and said to them, "Why all the commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep." Then they laughed at me. I put them out and afterwards took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with me and went in where the child was. I took her by the hand and said to her, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." Immediately the girl, who was 12, stood up and walked around. At this, they were completely astonished. They drew closer to me as I became more real to them, for now they knew me better. As do you, my much beloved and cherished listeners. I gave strict orders not to tell anyone to know about this. Then I told them to give her something to eat. When I when I entered Capernaum, a centurion came to me asking for my help. "Lord, my servant at home, paralyzed and in terrible suffering." Moved with compassion, I answered him, "I will come and heal him." The centurion replied, "Not so, my lord. I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. But just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it." I looked on with astonishment and said to those following me, "I tell you the truth. I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you, many will come from the east and the west and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of this kingdom will be thrown down outside into the darkness, where there'll be weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth." Then I turned to the centurion and said, "Go, it will be done, just as you believed it would." And his servant was healed at that very hour. This has been Richard Feller. Thank you for joining me again in another reading from Jesus, My Son, and My Father's Business. I also invite you to my website, which is callingtoncastle.com. Like number one, if you just put a one after it, it'll take you right to my website. And I have the Callington Castle book there for you. And it's a great story, a lot of action, a lot of adventure, and a lot of learning, spiritual principles all rolled up into one great book. And it took me 15 years to develop it. And I hope, or should I say, I know it will bless you. As it blessed me while I was writing it, even during that time. So, thank you again for joining me. This has been Richard Feller, and I look forward to seeing you here next Saturday night at 10:30 Eastern Time again. And until then, I hope I brought you a little peace and a little love, that you can take a little joy with you. Amen.